unmute your phone if you're speaking.
So read 1 through 15?
Yes, please. 1 through 16.
1 through 16? Okay.
Uh-huh.
Then the Lord said to Moses, "Go back to Pharaoh and announce to him, this is what the Lord says. Let my people go so they can worship me. If you refuse to let them go, I will send a plague of frogs across your entire land. The Nile River will swarm with frogs. They will come up out of the river and into your palace, even into your bedroom and onto your bed. They will enter the houses of your officials and your people, and they will even jump into your ovens and your netting bowls. Frogs will jump on you, your people, and all your officials." Then the Lord said to Moses, "Tell Aaron, raise the staff in your hand over all the rivers, canals, and ponds of Egypt, and bring up frogs all over the land." So Aaron raised his hand over the waters of Egypt, and frogs came up and covered the whole land. But the magicians were able to do the same thing with their magic. They too caused frogs to come up on the land of Egypt. Then Pharaoh summoned Moses and Aaron and begged, Plead with the Lord to take the frogs away from me and my people. I will let your people go so they can offer sacrifices to the Lord." "You set the time," Moses replied. Tell me when you want me to pray Tell me when you want me to pray for you and your officials and your people. Then you and your houses will be rid of the frogs. They will remain only in the Nile River. "Do it tomorrow," Pharaoh said. "All right," Moses replied. "It will be as you have said. Then you will know that there is no one like the Lord our God. The frogs will leave you and your houses, your officials, and your people, and they will remain only in the Nile River." So Moses and Aaron left Pharaoh's palace, and Moses cried out to the Lord about the frogs he had inflicted on Pharaoh. And the Lord did just what Moses had predicted. The frogs in the houses, the courtyards, and the fields all died. The Egyptians piled them into great heaps, and a terrible stench filled the land. But when Pharaoh saw that the relief had come, he became stubborn. He refused to listen to Moses and Aaron, just as the Lord had predicted.
All right. Somebody pick up verse 16 through 32. Verses 16 to 32.
Then the Lord said to Moses, "Say to Aaron, stretch out your rod and strike the dust of the ground, that it may become biting gnats or mosquitoes throughout all the land of Egypt." And they did so. Aaron stretched out his hand with his rod and struck the dust of the earth, and there came biting gnats or mosquitoes on man and beast. All the dust of the land became biting gnats or mosquitoes throughout all the land of Egypt. The magicians tried by their enchantments and secret arts to bring forth gnats or mosquitoes, but they could not. There were no gnats or mosquitoes on man and beast. Then the magicians said to Pharaoh, "This is the finger of God." But Pharaoh's heart was hardened and strong, and he would not listen to them, just as the Lord had said. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Rise up early in the morning and stand before Pharaoh as he comes forth to the water, and say to him, 'Thus says the Lord, let my people go, that they may serve me.' Else, if you will not let my people go, behold, I will send swarms of blood-sucking gadflies upon you, your servants and your people, and into your houses. And the houses of the Egyptians shall be full of swarms of blood-sucking gadflies, and also the ground on which they stand. But on that day I will sever and set apart the land of Goshen in which my people dwell, that no swarms of gadflies shall be there, so that you may know that I am the Lord in the midst of the earth. And I will put a division and a sign of deliverance between my people and your people. By tomorrow shall this sign be in evidence." And the Lord did so, and there came heavy and oppressive swarms of blood-sucking gadflies into the house of Pharaoh and his servants' houses. And in all of Egypt, the land was corrupted and ruined by reason of the great invasion of gadflies. And Pharaoh called for Moses and Aaron and said, "Go, sacrifice to your God here in the land of Egypt." And Moses said, "It is not suitable or right to do that, for the animals of the Egyptians hold sacred and will not permit to be slain, or those which we are accustomed to sacrifice to the Lord our God. If we did this before the eyes of the Egyptians, would they not stone us? We will go a 3 days' journey into the wilderness and sacrifice to the Lord our God as he will command us." So Pharaoh said, "I will let you go, that you may sacrifice to the Lord your God in the wilderness. Only you shall not go very far away. Entreat your God for me." Moses said, "I go out from you, and I will entreat the Lord that the swarms of blood-sucking gadflies may depart from Pharaoh, his servant, and his people tomorrow. Only let not Pharaoh deal deceitfully anymore, and not letting the people go to sacrifice to the Lord." So Moses went out from Pharaoh and entreated the Lord, and the Lord did as Moses had spoken. He removed the swarms of attacking gadflies from Pharaoh, from his servants, and his people. There remained not one. But Pharaoh hardened his heart and made it stubborn this time also, nor would he let the people go.
Amen. Thank you guys for reading Exodus chapter 8. I'm going to highlight a few scriptures for tonight. The first one is going to be chapter 8, verse 1. And the Lord spoke to Moses, "Go to Pharaoh and say to him, Thus says the Lord, let my people go, that they may serve me." Point number 1, when God calls you, he will speak to you. When God calls, he will speak to you. Point 1, when God calls you, he will speak to you. And remember, I am looking at this from a very non-traditional perspective. Most people would go right to "let my people go," that they may serve me. But I wanted to start with the importance of knowing, because we're looking at this from a leadership perspective, and then at this point, chapter 5, 6, 7, and all the way to, I believe, chapter 10, we're going to see God move supernaturally execution through leadership. So I want us to look at this from the leadership, through the lens of the leadership. And the Lord spoke to Moses. So when God calls you, he will speak to you, and speak to you with clear instructions, a clear vision in regards to how to execute his will, his command, his promises in your life. My cross-reference is going to be Genesis 12 and 1. Somebody get that? And the next one is going to be 1 Samuel, I believe is chapter 3, verses 1 through 11. And Genesis chapter 12, verses 1 through 4. And I'll read Genesis. If somebody get 1 Samuel 3. the Lord said to Abraham, remember, we're looking at this from God calls. When God calls, he'll speak to you. So God is speaking to Abraham. Abram, go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you. I will make you a great nation. I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse. And all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. So Abram went as the Lord had told him, and Lot went with him. Abram was 75 years old when he set out from Haran. You guys see some parallels there in Genesis 12, verses 1 through 4, and what we just read in Exodus chapter 7 and in chapter 8. You see any parallels? Chime in.
Yes.
What are some of the parallels?
Mhm.
What are some of the parallels in the cross-reference?
Let me go back to it. They're both being called and given specific instructions. What about Moses and Aaron? They were 80 and 83 when God used them.
Okay, they were both up in age.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other parallels? The first one would be, and the Lord spoke. That's one parallel. And the Lord said to Abraham. Another parallel would be verses 2 and 3 would be the blessing in obedience. God showed Abram how if he would obey him in regard to the instructions, what would be the outcome of his obedience. And that is in verses 2 and 3. And then also, they both were birthing this nation, this Hebrew nation. I will make you into a great nation. And then the other parallel would be Abram and Lot, which would be the power of agreement, where Moses and Aaron. Now, the only difference between Abram and Lot is Lot jumped on board. It said, and Lot went with him. God called Aaron to Moses based on Moses' request. But Lot jumped on. It said, and Lot just went. I can picture that in my mind's eye. When was that Ruth and Naomi? When it said, your God would be my God wherever you go. Hello. Lot just said, I'm going with you. And so this is some great parallels in Genesis 12, 1 and 4. Someone get 1 Samuel, the 3rd chapter, and I want to believe it's verses 1 through 11.
First Samuel 3, 1 through 11. It says, meanwhile, the boy Samuel served the Lord by assisting Eli. Now, in those days, messages from the Lord were very rare, and visions were quite uncommon. One night, Eli, who was almost blind, by now had gone to bed. The lamp of God had not yet gone out, and Samuel was sleeping in the tabernacle near the ark of God. Suddenly, the Lord called out Samuel. The Lord called out Samuel. I'm sorry, I lost my place.
Verse 4, I think you read.
Suddenly, the Lord called out Samuel. Yes, Samuel replied, what is it? He got up and he ran to Eli. Here I am. Did you call me? I didn't call you, Eli replied. Go back to bed. But he did. Then the Lord called out again, Samuel. Again, Samuel got up and went to Eli. Here I am. Did you call me? I didn't call you, my son, Eli said. Go back to bed. Samuel did not yet know the Lord because he had never had a message from the Lord before. So the Lord called a third time, and once more Samuel got up and went to Eli. Here I am. Did you call me? Then Eli realized it was the Lord who was calling the boy. So he said to Samuel, go and lie down again, and if someone calls you again, say, speak, Lord, your servant is listening. So Samuel went back to bed, and the Lord came and called as before, Samuel, Samuel. And Samuel replied, speak, your servant is listening. Then the Lord said to Samuel, I am about to do a shocking thing in Israel.
Amen.
And that's 1 through 11.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that's the way yours ended. What version were you reading?
Yes, I'm reading the, that was NLT.
The NLT, okay. The King James Version ends, I will do something in Israel at which both ears of everyone who hears it will tingle. Yeah. So the cross reference here, and some of the parallels would be Samuel's mother prayed for a child, and she promised that if God would bless her womb, open her womb, that she will return the child back unto the Lord to be a servant. And with Moses, Pharaoh had commanded to kill every firstborn, and in a desperate move of desperation, she surrendered her child to the Nile, and believing that God will spare her child from the slaughter of Pharaoh. And sure enough, God led Moses right into the house, but not for slaughter, but for the purpose of raising up a nation. He literally put Moses in a place of a sniper. He was raised right in the house of the murderer, and God gave him an inside track. And we'll see more how this worked for him, and it also worked against him. So those were the two cross references of when God calls you, He will speak to you. And it's very important to know that if God is calling, you have to stay in a posture to hear. You see what Samuel's reply was. He says, speak, Lord, your servant hears. We have to stay in a position to hear what the Lord is saying so that we can supernaturally execute God's divine plan for our lives. But if we don't hear, that was one of the reasons why I thought it was important to ask um, about the success of the 5 a.m. teaching, because we want to make sure that when you apply this word, when you walk it out, and that's why we had to have testimonies of how when you walk it out, when you receive it and walk it out, God is going to literally put you in positions where you will overcome by the word of your testimony. Abram, he said, if you do it my way, if you walk this thing out, I will not only make your name great, but I will make everyone that is born on the earth to be a blessing to you, and you will be a blessing to them. And whoever curse you, they will be cursed. So God was very clear in giving his instructions to Abram. He was very clear in regards to Samuel being in the posture to receive the blessing, to receive the instructions. And here is now Moses receiving instructions. And the Lord spoke to Moses, go to Pharaoh and say to him, thus says the Lord, let my people go, that they may serve me. I want to move a little quick because I don't want to spend go much overtime, but I want you to really pay attention on that verse 1, because you're going to see an error on Moses' part, and I want us to see Moses' pothole so that we don't fall into that same pothole. The next point will be point 2, which is exactly where we're going. Point 2 is remember the word of the Lord when executing the vision. That is point number 2. Remember the word of the Lord when executing the vision. And I believe it was in Exodus, either the 4th chapter or maybe the 5th chapter. And I remember one of the points being, don't panic. And I heard Debbie mention tonight about not panicking in that 9th hour. And so we have to be very careful that when it comes down to executing, we remember the word of the Lord. Let's go to, I want to read the scripture in regards to this point. I want to say it is, I'm going to have to cut through the grass on this one. Verse number 8. Pharaoh called for Moses and Aaron and said, entreat me, the Lord, that he may take away these frogs from me and from my people, and I will let the people go, that they may sacrifice to the Lord. And Moses said to Pharaoh, accept the honor of saying, when I shall intercede for you, for your servants, and for your people, to destroy the frogs from you and your houses, that they may remain in the river only. So he said, tomorrow. And he said, let it be according to your word, that you may know that there is no one like the Lord our God. And the frogs shall depart from you, from your houses, from your servants, and from your people. They shall remain in the river only. And Moses and Aaron went out from Pharaoh, and Moses cried out to the Lord concerning the frogs, and he brought against Pharaoh, that he had brought against Pharaoh. And so the Lord did according to the word of Moses. and the frogs died out of the houses, out of the courtyards, and out of the fields. Do anybody see what happened there? Anybody see what happened when Moses finally got into the presence of Pharaoh? He's now sitting at the table. Visualize this, please, if you would. You're in a conference room, and you're meeting with your boss, and you got an opportunity with a private meeting, and the Lord has given you instructions. Now you get to the boardroom. You get before your boss. Moses gets before Pharaoh. What happens? He gets excited. He gets overwhelmed, and he forgets what the Lord told him to say and what the Lord told him to do. God gave him clear instructions in verse number 1. What did he say in chapter 8? Verse 1, chapter 8. What did the Lord say to Moses?
Go to Pharaoh and say to him, specifically, let my people go, that they may serve me.
They may serve me. When Moses would get in front of Pharaoh, what did he say? Go to verse 9.
Moses said to Pharaoh, certainly set the time. When do you want the frogs out of here, away from your servants and people and out of your houses? And you'll be rid of frogs except for those in the Nile. Make it tomorrow.
Did he say what the Lord told him to do?
No.
He did not remember the word of the Lord when executing the vision. And I think this happens to a lot of people when they get in this position. I can imagine the first time you give a prophetic word, or the first time you go before the pastor of the ministry, or go before your boss, or go before great leaders and great opportunities, and the Lord gives you clear instructions, and then when you get there, you are so excited, you're so wrapped up in the moment that you literally forget to say what God says. You forget to follow the instructions. And Moses did not follow instructions. And he made a promise to Pharaoh. He actually opened up a loophole and gave Pharaoh an out because he did not follow the instructions of God. This is so important that we do not open up for these loopholes and allow leaders, darkness, spirit of darkness. You don't allow anyone to manipulate you because you do not execute the word of the Lord as instructed when you get into the presence of those in leadership over you. And so when Moses get here, he makes these false promises, and God says what? Verses 13.
He backs Moses up by the frogs died out of the houses. So according to the word of Moses, God did it. He backed it up.
God backed up his leader even though it was not the instructions, and 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 but God did not get the results that he was looking for in verse 8, but he did get the results that he gave to Moses back in chapter 3 when he said, and Moses will not take heed to you, but I will harden his heart. So Moses didn't follow instruction, but God had already told him what the outcome would be. But Moses did not know how God was going to execute it. We have to remember the word of the Lord when executing the vision. Let me just read my notes here. The excitement of being at the table with the leader, the king, the president, your employer, your husband or your wife. We must remember what was the purpose of you coming to the meeting, verses 10 and 11. Is not the purpose of coming to the table and say what God say. Be careful. Listen with discernment. When Pharaoh was talking to Moses, Moses turned off his discernment. Listen with discernment. It must be activated. It is a must that we walk away with a response with accountability attached to the agreement. In other words, when God gives us an instructions, when you're telling the king, the president, the employer, your husband, your wife, you must attach accountability with the agreement so that you'll know what to expect at the end of that meeting. When I was in high school and they were teaching us a class in regards to business, they will always say, go into the meeting knowing what you want to walk away with. And this is what happened to Moses. He forgot to go into this meeting without that little note to remind him what is the purpose of me going in and what do I want to walk away with. And his negotiating skills, he should have been saying, at the end of this meeting, all I want is let my people go. And Pharaoh manipulated, he conned him, he controlled him, and Moses ended up compromising in regards to what the outcome should have been. And what I love about God is God will back his leader up. And I love what he says here in my note here. Your response will override God's will. Our relationship with God is partnership. According to your word, Moses, that shows partnership. And we have to be careful that we do not override what God's plan is when we execute his vision, because God will honor the words that come out of our mouths. We must be careful about what we say and how we respond when we're going into negotiating, going into a meeting, even in our ministries. Turn on those listening, discernment, activated ears. Let's make sure that we remember the word of the Lord when executing the vision. I know each of us have a testimony of how we've all made this mistake, where God told us to do one thing and we did it our own way, and God backed us up. He didn't allow us to be put to shame, and but we delay the will of God because it could have been activated and sooner if we had just listened to God the first time. Because at the end, God was going to get the end result in which he wanted. It took him 10 plagues, and you'll see through each plague, you'll see where Moses made a oopsie, and you'll see because of relationship how God walked Moses through, but through grace and mercy to allow him to come out victorious. But he walked him through these 10 plagues, and Moses just made different mistakes, little small mistakes, and God backed him up. Pharaoh did his manipulation because when the time of reckoning came, Pharaoh told Moses, I'm not going to let the people go and worship. I'm not going to let the people be released. And that wasn't the ultimate goal that God wanted, but God had another plan in place. So we have to be very careful. One is to make sure that we hear the voice of the Lord, and then two, that we have our discerning ears on, so when we get to the table, when we get to the place of negotiation, we're able to execute the word of the Lord according to the vision that he has given to us, according